Hello and welcome to Quarantine Athlete, where we discuss how to stay in the game and push through these extraordinary times together. I'm Martise Moore, former USC hurdler turned confidence and performance coach. And today I'd like to welcome veteran sports dietitian, Beth Wolfgram.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you
Awesome.
for joining us. Beth was formerly the director of sports nutrition at the University of Utah Athletic Department for 10 years. She also has been the consultant sports dietitian with the Utah Jazz since 2001. And she is on the board of directors of the Collegiate and Professional Sports Dietitians Association. So thanks again for joining us. Obviously, you are expert in this field, so we really appreciate you taking the time to help us out during this quarantine.
Yeah, thanks. Definitely some challenging times. We've never been through anything like this. No one has. So yeah, we're navigating them all together.
Yeah.
So thanks for having me.
Thanks. I think we could all use your help these days, especially athletes, because this pandemic has created an unexpected off season, and the powerful magnet on the refrigerators and the kitchen pantries and cabinets is really challenging. So if you could help us kind of navigate some of those choices today, that would be wonderful. So just want to kind of really just start off as an athlete, does it matter what we are eating and drinking right now? Will it affect our future performances when sports start back up?
Yeah, great question. And just to give this some perspective, I work with high school athletes, collegiate athletes, recreational athletes. I work with a lot of endurance athletes. We're doing triathlons. I myself have an Ironman in July, my very first one. And that's to be determined if it's going or not. So I certainly understand the newfound off season or the changes in schedule and the uncertainties. So I think the first thing to think about is actually not even about the food. It's, what can we control about this situation? Well, there's a lot of things we can't control. And we're learning to adapt. And I think one of my favorite ways of looking at this is it's an opportunity. It's an opportunity to step back and look at, like, what am I doing? How have I been training? How have I been fueling my body? Can I do this any differently? And to just really use it as almost like a do-over, like a chance to do some things differently. And so when you do that and take the pressure off, I have to be eating a certain way, and I have to be consuming a certain amount, and I have to be training this way. There's really no way of going through this that is considered optimal or ideal or normal, because we've never been through anything like this, and no one had planned for this.
Right.
So I think, determining, number one, what can you control, and how can you look at this as an opportunity? And how have the last few weeks gone? Has it been really challenging? Like you said, running to the refrigerator, are you finding that you're not fueling your body maybe as best as you were before all of this pandemic hit? And are there things that you feel like you could do differently? So I would use this as a time to say, okay, I'm going to have a little grace with myself. I'm going to be kind to myself. But then I also, maybe it's a good time to focus on some basics. So the things that I recommend actually starting with are really some of the basics, getting back to the foundations of sports nutrition. And are you doing those now? And if not, is there something, maybe one of them that you can do? And the first thing that I look at is matching your caloric intake to your training. So if you're like me, my training has completely changed. I'm not swimming at all. Here I'm supposed to be doing an Ironman, and I haven't been in a pool in 8 weeks.
Yeah.
So, everybody's training has changed. So when it changes, your intake might not need to be quite as high. Maybe you don't need to pay attention to timing and your snacks throughout the day and that type of stuff. Or maybe you have a little bit more time now and some flexibility, and you're doing more training or different types of training. So it's not always that you need to be eating less. It's just, are you fueling for what you're doing right now?
Right.
Maybe you're doing more activities with your family, or you're out, going for longer walks or things like that. So even though your training as an athlete may have shifted, what
Mm-hmm.
else are you doing activity wise? So always matching your caloric intake to your actual training, to your movement, is really important, because I see people under fueling, so not having enough fuel, and
Mm-hmm.
over fueling,
Mm-hmm.
essentially. So, if you're someone who is running to the refrigerator all the time,
Uh-huh.
in between, either classes or Zoom meetings or whatever your days look like.
Commercials.
Exactly. Yeah. In between breaks of commercials, ask yourself, as you put your hand on the cupboard or the refrigerator and you go to grab it, like, am I really hungry?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it sounds like such a simple question, but if your answer is, no, I'm not really hungry,
Mm-hmm.
I'm just getting something to get something,
Right.
then you have a choice. You can say, I don't really necessarily need this physiologically. My body doesn't need it. It's not something that I need to fuel myself with. And maybe you'll say, yeah, I'm still going to have a snack, or I'm still going to have some of this. Or maybe you'll say, yeah, I'm really not hungry. What I
Mm-hmm.
really need is just a break. I need to get off the couch. I need to get away from the Zoom meeting. I need to walk around the block for
Mm-hmm.
2 minutes. I need to go outside and do a downward dog, or,
Mm-hmm.
jump up and down or something, just to kind of break the pattern of what you're doing. So it
Right.
sounds like such a simple thing, but
Mm-hmm.
asking yourself if you're hungry can kind of stop everything for a second.
That's
So
great, because I know a lot of people who are struggling with that, especially. And
yes.
yeah, just to give yourself some pause and really
Mhm.
become self-aware.
Exactly. So it's creating some mindfulness,
Mm-hmm.
am I doing this just out of habit? Am I doing it out of boredom?
Yeah.
Um, I mean, like everyone else, I'm here, I'm home, the kitchen's 20 steps away. It's
Uh-huh.
so much easier to go grab something.
Right.
Um, and, maybe even have like a sticky note, put a sticky note on your computer or somewhere nearby, like, am I hungry? And,
Mm-hmm.
is this really how you want to use this opportunity? And again, it doesn't mean you're always going to say, no, I'm not hungry and I'm not going to have anything. You might
Mm-hmm.
say, yeah, I'm not hungry. I'm still having chips and salsa right now. And
Uh-huh.
that's okay sometimes too. But it's just the pause. It's the time to give yourself a pause, and then you get to make a decision.
Mm-hmm.
And is it helping you with your goals? I think that's something to look at too. Is it helping you with what you want to do during this time? I heard a great podcast the other day that was asking you yourself, essentially, like,
Mm-hmm.
how what do you want to how do you want to feel, and what do you want to have accomplished or experience during this time? So 3 months from now or 6 months, how do you want to look back on it,
Uh-huh.
essentially, as a time like maybe you had some growth, you tried some new things, you did some overcame obstacles? Or do you
Right.
want to view it as a time that you put everything, all your goals aside, and you know just had a really hard time with it?
Mm-hmm.
So there's different ways of going about this. And I find athletes, typically, you're motivated. You want to be the best you
Right.
can be. You're always looking for that competitive edge. This is a time for that edge. This is a
Mm-hmm.
time for an opportunity to say, I can do some things here,
Yeah.
make this a better experience.
Yeah. What kind of story do you want to create right now? This is
Exactly.
definitely a chapter most of us are going to remember for the rest of our lives.
Totally.
And, what do
Yep.
you want the narrative to be?
Hmm.
So
Exactly.
that's great.
So then the next part of this is looking at not only your intake and matching your calories to your actual training, but what types of fuel are you grabbing?
Mm-hmm.
And it's really easy to grab, some high sugary treats because they give you a little pick me up, and that's great. There's nothing wrong with that sometimes.
Uh-huh.
But can you fuel your body with some really great sources of nutrients to help you stay healthy and help you with healing from any training you're doing and help your immune system stay strong? And one of the biggest things in that is, again, very basic fruits and veggies. It sounds so just foundational information, but The nutrients we get from our fruits and vegetables
Mm-hmm.
are amazing. Like we get tons of vitamins and minerals. We get antioxidants, which are compounds that help us with healing, phytochemicals, all these like plant compounds that are just
Mm-hmm.
naturally occurring in fruits and vegetables. So having fruits and vegetables can help your immune system, can help you with healing, recovery, staying strong, fighting infections, cold, flus, that type of stuff, which everybody's trying to stay healthy right now.
Right.
So if you don't have access to fresh fruits and vegetables, because obviously maybe we're not going to the grocery store as much, we don't have access, maybe your local stores don't have the abundance that they once had.
Mm-hmm.
You can still do frozen
Mm-hmm.
fruits and vegetables. We got frozen strawberries yesterday and made strawberry smoothies.
Uh-huh.
You can use frozen fruits and vegetables in a lot of different dishes or have as a snack. Having like a canned fruit or vegetable is fine too.
Mm-hmm.
For fruit, I would get something packed in its own juice versus in heavy syrup.
Syrup, yeah.
And canned vegetables or frozen vegetables for that matter are a great option too. They're much better than not having any vegetables at all. So it sounds so basic and simple, but the reality is what we get from those fruits and vegetables, that produce, is such a big nutritional bang. It can really help you with healing and staying healthy during this time.
Okay, yeah. Like mom always said, eat your fruits and vegetables.
Exactly. So
I think we really take that kind of for granted, because they're just always around. You don't really think about how simple things can be so powerful. Like you said, we're always looking for that competitive edge. And the reality is, it's so much easier to get all of this processed food. And so many people are, that is the majority of their diet. And this is one way where, you can get more of an edge over the other athletes who aren't eating as clean as you're just talking about.
Yeah. And I recommend that you have a fruit or vegetable at every meal. So that's an easy way to go, okay, am I getting enough? Well, have something at breakfast, something at lunch, something at dinner. And then if you can along the way, maybe a snack or two. But if you're someone who's like, yeah, I haven't had a fruit in a couple days, that's probably not enough.
Yeah.
And it is simple, but it has a real big impact. And in the whole scheme of things, it's much better than spending your money on fancy supplements or eating, like you said, different packaged and processed foods. So it does boil down to kind of some of the basics. And when you look at, what your body needs, this leads us into our third thing is your body runs on carbohydrates. That's its main energy source. It's what it's good at running on, what it likes to run on. And for athletes, carbohydrates are your friend. It is, they are essentially what fuels your body. So you don't want to limit them. And fruits and vegetables are a great source of carbohydrates, but you also will need some type of grains, whether it be rice or quinoa or pasta or English muffins or cereal, toast. And again, going back to what is your training like right now? So, maybe again, we've got extremes. Maybe you're not training as much. Maybe you're training a little bit more. Maybe you're training differently. So your carbohydrate needs may have changed a little bit. One good rule of thumb is, again, at every meal, you should have a carbohydrate source. So making sure that meal basically is going to help you with not only fueling your body, but help you with recovery of any type of training that you're doing.
Right.
So, so far we've got matching your calories to your training, increasing your intake of fruits and vegetables, getting optimal amount of carbohydrates. And then the next one would be getting an optimal amount of protein. So if I'm looking at like what a meal should have in it, whether it's breakfast, lunch, or dinner, it should have a fruit or vegetable, some type of carbohydrate, starch, green, and then a protein serving. And the protein has a very different role than the carbohydrates. The protein is necessary for building and repairing muscle tissue. It's important for keeping your immune system strong, which again, we're all trying to do right now.
Right.
fighting colds, flus, infections, all of that type of stuff. So you need to have protein regularly throughout the day. So we don't want to just base our eating on vegetables or just on grains or even just on chicken or yogurt, but we want to have a balance at all meals. And again, it sounds so simple and sounds so basic, but it's really the basics are what keep us healthy and what helps us as an athlete. And sometimes when life gets stressful and there's a lot going on and we're feeling really anxious, sometimes all the basics just go flying out the window and we start, oh my gosh, I'm eating, sugary cereal for breakfast and chips and chocolate covered almonds for dinner and that type of stuff. So it's really getting back to the basics. Again, looking like what's the opportunity in this? What can you do that will help you through this? And when you fuel your body in a healthy manner, you'll actually feel better and you'll feel good when you're doing your workouts. You'll sleep better, which leads us into our next point is making sure you're getting a decent amount and good quality sleep. Not necessarily a nutrition tip, but it so relates directly back to our nutrition. And, athletes who are not sleeping well, either don't get enough sleep or not good quality sleep, actually end up eating poorly. They end up looking for caffeine and high sugar foods and drinks to give themselves energy. And then they're kind of on this roller coaster all day trying to just chase their energy and bring it back up. So that's...
You mean that's not normal?
I know, right? Oh, optimally, you wouldn't necessarily need a little caffeine's fine, a little bit of sugar is fine, but not as your main source of getting through the day.
Sure.
So if you're fueling your body at those meals of like a carb, a protein, and a fruit or vegetable, and you're matching your calories to your training, then hopefully you're not going to need large amounts of added sugar and caffeine. And again, nothing wrong with those occasionally or to use as a tool with training, but hopefully not what you're relying on exclusively.
Nice.
And I think, the last thing that I encourage athletes to think about is, again, what can you do during this time to help give yourself a competitive edge? First of all, be kind to yourself. Have a little grace. Give yourself a little bit of flexibility that this is hard. There's a lot of challenges emotionally. You may have family members who are sick. You may know people who are sick. Your schedule has changed. We're all at a place where we've had a loss of things, whether it's events or things you were training for, or, so many things have changed. And it kind of feels like, oh my gosh, there's so much. So, is there something that you can do for yourself right now to help you emotionally in that support aspect? Something that you can do to give yourself some kindness and some grace and not be so hard on yourself. I see people who are just like, I can't believe it. I'm doing this and eating that and da, da, da. And although we don't want to encourage people to head down that path exclusively and just go down into a dark hole, I think it's also okay to recognize, like, sometimes that's necessary. That's okay. We don't have to be so hard on ourselves of what our expectations are. And just like training, we can't be at the top of our game all the time. We have cycles throughout the year. We have cycles throughout our training. And we're in a place that's changed and we have to adapt to it. So rather than looking at this as just horrible and everything's falling apart, is it a time to, maybe you're working differently in your training, you're focusing more on strength or flexibility or something that you haven't done before. Same thing in your nutrition. Like, is there something I can do that would help me with this opportunity? So don't be so hard on yourself.
Yeah, that's good advice. There's a lot of judging going on. Self-judging, especially because no one else can see you. So it's a lot of self-judging going on. And that just kind of perpetuates the cycle of, more emotional eating. So it's great that you make that point that, yeah, be kind to yourself, have a handle on it though, don't want to go into a deep dark hole like you were saying, but also, not so hard on yourself.
And if you feel like you're going down into a hole, like, what do you have for support? Can you reach out to, a teammate or a parent, or, can you reach out to a coach, or where can you get that support? I mean, I have found in my world, we're on like a roller coaster.
Yeah.
1 minute you're like, I got this, I'm good. And then something happens, like, it's kind of like that. And so who can you reach out to, or what can you do? And one of the things that I've done right off, the first thing I did when all this hit, I said, okay, what are the 2 things that I need to do each day to help me? And the 2 things for me were getting outside and doing some type of training, some type of exercise. Yeah. And for me, those are my non-negotiables. It doesn't matter what else happens during the day, but that's for me. Yeah. And we did that as a family. We talked about that, like, what do you need? And they're different for everybody. Some people may need to go into a quiet place. Some people may need to listen to some music or get distant from people. Everybody's needs are different, And it's, what do you need to help you? And sometimes that's reaching out to people, letting people know, like, I'm really struggling today. And that's hard to do sometimes. But I'll tell you, there's so many people who are feeling the same. And I have found in my own life that thankfully we're not all feeling gloomy at the same time.
Yeah.
When I'm feeling like, oh my gosh, I can't do this, somebody else can like pick me up, can lift me up. Whereas, there's days that I'm feeling really pretty solid and I can help lift other people up. So reach out to people. Don't just go down that dark hole. Reach out to people. And I'm sure yourself, you've been a great resource for athletes because, they're looking for support right now. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what we're trying to do here on Quarantine Athletes. So that's why it's so great that you're sharing your valuable advice and time with us. So definitely thank you. Yeah. And we are going to have a sports psychologist on as well to directly speak to some of the things you were talking about.
Awesome.
So that's great that you mentioned it.
Great. Yeah. And, the psychology end of things and the nutrition really work together because if people are really struggling emotionally and mentally, they're going to be struggling often with their food. Yeah. And so it's very interrelated. And again, I think asking yourself, like, what do I need during this time? What can I do to help myself navigate this uncharted time period? Who can I reach out to? How can I look at this as an opportunity? Getting back to the basics again, what we talked about nutrition wise today, it's not necessarily fancy, but it's in the basics, but it's the stuff we can control. We can control buying some bananas and getting some carrots. We can control eating breakfast, lunch, and dinner and having balance, carb, protein, fruit, or vegetable. We can control these things that will help us feel better and help us train better. So, determining what you can control and then controlling those things. Yeah. They're good lessons.
Yeah. And, I really appreciate the fact that you were talking about what you need every day, what you said you're doing for yourself, because, as athletes, we want to win. And I feel like, when you decide that something is non-negotiable, you're doing certain things to progress as a person, and as an athlete, you're giving yourself wins. And this is one way we can still, kind of keep tally on, winning, even though we're off the field. So nutrition is definitely one of those areas where we can get some more wins than maybe we were getting before. Like you said, this is an opportunity to do better. Right. And to, kind of nail it right now. We have time. See that? The time is like the gift for us right now.
It is. It's a gift. And it's what do we do with this opportunity? Right. Are there things that you feel like you could do better or want to work on during this time when you now have the time to do it? Yeah. So you get to choose, which is cool.
And that's how we'll end it. You get to choose. You get to choose how you fuel your body and, practice some of the tips that Beth has shared with us today. And like she said, reach out to people whenever you need it. Definitely leave us comments. And we're responding to all the comments. We can even, so let us know what you're up to and what you're winning at and, some of the challenges that you're having, because that's why we're here, Quarantine Athlete. So with all that, we are going to leave a link to sportsrd.org.
Yep.
Okay.
And you can, so CPSDA is a great resource.
Mm-hmm.
Our members work in collegiate and professional settings. They work with high school athletes, military athletes, Olympic athletes. So great resource. You can also connect to, my website is fuelingyourperformance.com. And, it could help you connect with a sports dietitian in your area. If you want to work with someone individually. There's lots of great resources out there.
Yeah. Wonderful. Well, thank you so much. And that concludes today's episode of Quarantine Athlete. So be sure to follow us on Instagram and Twitter at GreenRunner LA, and also on YouTube. And again, tell us about your quarantine athlete experiences, especially, as it pertains to nutrition. And until next time, please stay safe and eat well. And thank you so much, Beth.
See ya.